All right. I'm up early in the morning trying to turn over a new leaf, become less of a night owl, because as I get into my mid-50s, aches and pains are just coming out of the woodwork. And I do find that early to bed, early to rise, maybe it doesn't make me wiser, but it makes my body feel better. And I guess it's better mentally as well, because I'm feeling pretty sharp and keen this morning. I am going to be checking out a phase correlation meter by Voxengo, because Ninko over there in France tells me that I have phasing issues. Isn't that what you said, Ninko? Those plugins are giving me phasing issues. I'm paraphrasing. Maybe I don't think I'm misrepresenting what you said. I was listening to this most recent project, Ballad of a Hungry Ghost, through my smartphone, and I noticed all kinds of wackadoodle phasiness going on. Are those issues? Are they problems? I don't know. I need to educate myself. DJ, I told you I don't take any of this stuff all that seriously, but I did comment that maybe I need to take it a little bit more seriously. So, this is my first effort to address how do I ascertain if I have phasing issues? And if I do have phasing issues, issue meaning something that needs addressing, not as in a salad dressing, but addressing, measures to correct. Well, how do I go about ascertaining that? And then how do I go about correcting for it? So I have here 3 tracks that I chose because they're like 3 of my favorite recordings of all time. And I'm trying to establish some kind of frame of reference. This here is Voxengo Correlometer or Correlometer. Yeah. How do you pronounce it? I don't know. But from what I understand, it's got a yellow line in the middle. And what we want is, as much as possible, readings north of the yellow line between 0 and 1. And we want anything dipping south of the line between 0 and -1, that represents phasing issues. So track number 1, I've got Rush, Tom Sawyer. Track number 2, I've got Cherub Rock, Smashing Pumpkins, Cherub Rock. And track 3, I've got Steely Dan FM, a gold standard recording. Gold standard Steely Dan, man. Steely Dan, man. Okay, so without further ado, I've got my master volume all the way down to -infinity because I don't want any copyright strikes. And away we go. We're going to start with Rush, Tom Sawyer. Okay. An immediate dip down here in the bass frequencies. And I think that's the synthesizer. So I did run through these real quick before I sat down to make this video. And I made some quick mental notes. And in this song, there are a few spikes south in the low mids to mid-mids. But there are these big dips down in the bass frequencies when that synthesizer kicks in. Because this album, Moving Pictures, is I think that's when they started. No, they were using synths, They were using synths as far back as like 2112, right? But I think this album right there. This album is noted for its synths, right? Like they really got into the synths with this album. And yeah, those dips down there correlate with when that synth kicks in. So some pretty, not inconsiderable dips down into the negative territory here and in the mids. Now that's Rush Tom Sawyer. IMHO, to my ears, just one of the coolest sounding recordings in music history. I mean, that's the one that's Rush's Freebird, right? Play Tom Sawyer. Like that's the song that they got to play at every show, or did, sadly. That is now a thing of the past. I'm glad I got to see him the number of times I did. Okay, so that's Tom Sawyer. Now we're going to move on to Cherub Rock by Smashing Pumpkins. I also chose these because they're just iconic, right? Tom Sawyer is an iconic Rush song. Cherub Rock is an iconic Smashing Pumpkins song. And these are all big hits, right? And then FM is an iconic Steely Dan song. I was thinking to choose something off Gaucho because that's considered like the pinnacle of their studio perfection. But I figured FM would be more fairly representative. But still, anything Steely Dan is gold standard, like audiophile gold standard, right? So on to Cherub Rock. I'm soloing Cherub Rock, and there's the initial drum roll. Nothing. And then Billy's sort of guitar riff. Okay, some spikes. And drums coming back in, and then the heavy guitars hit. And this is pretty well behaved, isn't it? Some dips around the low mids here and there. But all in all, like I think this, if I have this correctly, if I'm reading this meter correctly, Smashing Pumpkins is performing better in the phase issue category than Rush. Okay? And it's pretty much consistently this way throughout the song. You get a few down spikes in the low mids, occasionally the higher mids, very occasionally, but like this is 99% north of that yellow line, 0. Okay, so that's Smashing Pumpkins, Cherub Rock. And now on to the gold standard Steely Dan. This is Steely Dan FM. And some dip. Okay, well, there's a big dip there. Now, what I found to be a consistent pattern in this track, you'll see some bigger dips in the mids coming up there. And what those are all coming from the piano. All from the piano. No dips from the guitar. All the dips are from the piano. So, as perfectionistic as Steely Dan were, you can see that this is really tight, really consistent. But when it does dip below the line, that's the piano. So is it that, is it just impossible? Is it just like technically impossible to have everything 100% north of that line all the time? And not even Steely Dan could do anything about it? I don't know. DJ? What do you think? Jonathan? Jonathan, man, I really appreciated your comment explaining meter. You're very kind, very considerate person. And I'm going to print that out and post it somewhere in the vicinity of my workstation for ongoing future reference, as I mentioned in my reply. And I'm going to be doing another video on meter. This is going to be 3 shorter videos. Okay, so that's Steely Dan. Overall, really good. Just the piano. The piano part is the only thing causing the correlometer to dip into the negatives. Okay, so now I don't know, there's nothing scientific about any of this. I really don't know what I'm doing yet, but now I'm going to my recent project, Ballad of a Hungry Ghost. Now, this is an open project, and so this thing is going to be burbling around, even though I'm not hitting playback. And you can see, it looks like I've got more. I'm going to have more spikes in the negative territory than those pro recordings, as to be expected, right? Now, so I'll tell you before I even hit play that, yeah, I've got more spikes in. I got more spikes south of the line than the pro recordings, and they're like with Rush, I could correlate it to the synth. With Steely Dan, I could correlate it to the piano. In the case of my project, I can't really pin it down to anything. So it's kind of all over the place, and so this is a new challenge for me to figure out how to isolate what's causing the phasing issues and go about rectifying the phasing issues. So new learning curve for me, a new adventure in learning, and a new part of my workflow. But I did have one theory about what might be causing some of it, and that is in the acoustic guitar part called sitar, because it ended up sounding kind of sitar-esque, sitarish, sitari. I've got these 3 plugins here, Spacer, Acon, Digital Multiply, and OCS 45. All of these modulation heavy. And I reckon like that would be one culprit that you would look for in terms of phasing issues, isn't it? I guess another one would be EQ settings. Panning, I don't really pan anything because of my hearing impediment, my left ear. I spatialize. I don't pan. So this is new territory for me, and any feedback would be much appreciated. So, and Josh, if you're watching this, I'd like to, I'd love to hear your. I wouldn't call it 2 cents. In your case, I'd call it more like $2 or $20 or $2,000 or $2 million. Because I consider your recordings to be in just my estimation, you're kind of in Steely Dan territory. I don't say that lightly. Your recordings are very pleasing, sonically very pleasing. And I think you know a lot more about this mastering thing than I do. Mixing and mastering both. So I know you're busy down there getting your studio back together, which is awesome to see. Oh, and I really, 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 really savored the tour of your property yesterday. It was just on the winter day here, and getting to, I could almost feel that Australian sunshine and the animals and the stories, and those goats were funny, man. I wish I had some goats. And you're a putty tat. It's a whole thing, man. The quinces, they got quinces up here in Korea too. Up here, they're just inedible. But you can chop them up fresh and make tea, a very apple-y kind of tea, kind of apple with hints of pear flavor. Mix it with honey, quince tea, and you can do that with freshly cut up quince or dehydrate it. Either way. Also good with ginger, quince and ginger and honey. It's good stuff. That was a great tour, dude. I love your live streams. I really do. Okay, so anyways, back to the business at hand here. So I'm going to play back and show you how bad my phasing issues are, and then I'm going to toggle off these plugins in this guitar. Now, it's only one track. It's only 3 plugins in one track. But will it make a difference? I don't know. I haven't done it yet. Let's find out. Oops, I got to turn on my Correlometer. Okay, here we go. Okay, so yeah, I got phase issues. Now that I have frames of reference, not as bad as I expected, TBH. Now the next thing I'm going to do is spectrum analyzer, also from Voxengo. This looks like a pretty poor spectrum. But anyway, back to the dips. So they're kind of all over the place here, but more so up in the trebles. And right around here, between 2,000 and 3,000 hertz, consistently. Consistently between 2 and 4,000, 2 and 5,000. And even in the positive region, not very good performance, right? So I've got issues up here. Not too bad down here. But now, will it make a difference if I kick these off. So those 3 plugins are now bypassed. And I don't know, it doesn't look like it's made too much of a difference. Back on. Okay, so ancient Pali-Buddhist canonical text, scripture, and I'm reading it in that. Yeah, I did that. I had reasons for using that sort of intonation. Anyway, I've got issues. And now I've got to do some deep dives, I suppose. Figure out what I can do about it. Is it just a matter of turning off some plugins? Well, I use my plugins for very highly specific purposes. I don't just slap them on willy-nilly for the hell of it. I'm very purposeful in how I use effects and plugins. I prefer to call them tools and not effects, because to me they're not just effects. They are very deliberate choices to achieve something that I'm trying to achieve, right? So, just, new territory for me. I appreciate any and all feedback from you guys, and I appreciate you being there. Jonathan, thanks once again for your kindness and your time and your energy. And appreciate all you guys, man. I'm going to go get some coffee and hash browns and eggs with some chipotle sauce. Get my morning on. And then I'm going to come back and make a video on Voxengo span. Also starting to... I want to look at my spectrum. It's a spectrum analyzer. I'm going to start incorporating this into my workflow as well. And I'm ignorant. I'm a moron. Trying to get better. Trying to become less of a moron. And I don't mind admitting it. So, back soon with another shorter video. Short by my standards anyway. See you then.